Hey there, welcome back. I wanted to kind of go through what we went through today in class on the 26th of August. I'm not going to guarantee you to stay with my 10 minutes, although I'll try it, but I thought it might be useful to kind of walk you through what we did, where we've been, and where we're going. All right, we started off with some of the big 10,000 foot view, if you will, pictures. And I use that expression, 10,000 foot view. Imagine if you're in a plane going across country and you look down and you see the patchwork of farms going across the Midwest from 10,000 feet up, or 20 or 30,000, which is where a jet cruises. You look at a big series of checkers, but you can't really see houses and individual people or cars or anything like that. That's kind of where we start off with in this class. We start off with a really high level view, then we kind of zoom on in. The reason we do that is because when you look at the 7th grade science standards, the 7th grade science standards are really just a set of guidelines and rules on where you should be when you jump on into this stuff. Now, the 7th grade ones, which I'll link below if I can, are about knowing about atoms, molecules. That's why we started off a little bit on, hey, well, where did all these atoms and molecules come from? We mentioned, for example, the other day, the Big Bang. We mentioned the age of the universe. One of the tricks in learning anything is to jump in at the right place. Think about it. If you've never played guitar before, you don't just jump in and start doing some Eddie Van Halen riffs on a guitar. That'd be nice if you could, but what you end up doing is you learn the scales, you learn the notes, you learn the keys, and you kind of move your way in. If I were to all of a sudden tell everyone in class, hey, look, grab my old calculus book here from college, hey, look, today we're going to jump into calculus, the 7th graders would be looking at me like, oh, wait a second, we're still trying to get down the algebra stuff. Think about sports. If you like track and field, for example, you don't just go out to track and field on your very first day and have a coach tell you in high school, okay, today we're going to work on mile repeats. I'd like everyone to do their mile in 4 minutes, please. No, you kind of start where you're at. The trick to learning anything in life is to start just at the part that's just a little bit of a stretch for you. On the flip side, you don't want to start too basic, too easy either. If you were going to start in track, you wouldn't say, okay, we're just going to start walking today. You'd probably start with some jogging. So what I'm trying to do at the beginning of the semester especially over the first month, one, we're getting the routines down. One, we're also learning about how the labs work in this class, but we're also trying to make sure that the students are jumping in at the right spot. They have a lot of the background information. Certainly last year too, with the distance learning and the pandemic, it was really tricky, and we're doing a lot of kind of backfilling, they call it sometimes, trying to make it just right on where to jump in, making sure students know where we've been and where we're going. So my intention today, sitting on my chair here, we talked a little bit about gravity. I showed a brain pop, it's a little 4-minute clip on gravity. It's a really good one. Why gravity? Well, it's one of the 4 basic forces that we know about in nature. We also have to define a few things for the students, make sure we understand what we're doing when we're talking about mass. For example, our experiment today involved a golf ball, so here's a golf ball right here. Anytime I get to incorporate golf into a lesson, it's a good thing. If you look at a golf ball, when I drop a golf ball onto the floor and it bounces back up, trying to express to the students the idea of mass, the idea of gravity, and the idea that everything that you can weigh has gravity. It's just that as you increase the mass and weight aren't quite the same thing. You learn more about that in 8th grade, but we have to touch on it here. As you increase the mass, you get more gravity. So it's just as proper for me to say, yeah, the earth pulled down the golf ball, as it is to say, well, the earth was pulled up to the golf ball. Now, of course, remember, since mass and gravity go along together, gravity is what we call a function of mass. Fancy way of saying the more stuff you have, stuff I put in quotes, whenever you see something on the board in quotes, it means it's not really a scientific term. It's just one of those terms that we use every day. The more stuff you have, the more gravity you have. Yeah, you certainly don't notice that the earth is rising up to meet this golf ball. As a matter of fact, that's not measurable. But use your imagination for a second. If you can increase this golf ball to the size and the mass of the earth, and then they came together, they'd be pulling each other towards each other. And so that went on to our next part down here, which will be ongoing for a little while, our observation of sunrise, sunset times. So we want to be able to look at it over a week or two, make predictions about what it'll be in a little while. Remember, any good science theory, any good science ideas have to be able to make predictions. We're also checking out the tides right here in good old Pacifica. I'm using Lindamar as my base, the Lindamar Beach there. We had 2 high tides a day and 2 low tides a day. So we're keeping track of the tides. And the moon phase, it's about an 83% waning gibbous moon today. 83% meaning 83% of the moon is visible right now. And when we look at this over a long term, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, hopefully we'll be able to make some predictions. From there, where'd we go? We went out to the schoolyard out here. You can probably hear it through the window right now. The PE class is doing their thing out there. What we did is we took some good old sidewalk chalk and kept track of the exact time of the day, and we wrote down, we traced out the shadows from one of the buildings across the campus here. Our intention being, whether we get there tomorrow or the next day or the next week, the weather in Pacifica can be a little fickle on when the fog moves on in, so we'll wait for the next clear day at the exact same time for each class. And again, check the shadows. We want students to be able to make a prediction based on what we know about the way the Earth orbits the sun, what we know about the tilt of the Earth, the things that we'll be learning as we go through the first trimester here. Do you think those shadows will be growing or shrinking for the same time of day, day after day? In other words, as we move closer to fall, are those shadows getting longer or shorter? From there, we moved on to talk about. This is one of those just straightforward notes. Like, in other words, please write this down. Challenge students to think, how many forces are there in nature? As far as we know right now, and again, I probably say that too much to the students, but I try and express that science is a dynamic thing. We're learning more all the time. As far as we know right now, at this point, there are 4 forces that we know about. Really, in this class, we at first only talk about the first 2 that we've learned, which is gravity and electromagnetism, which we've already touched on a little bit. We had a little bit of one of those lightning balls where you can put your finger on it and it shows the path of the electromagnetic field up to your finger. If you think about these little magnets right here attracting things, there's an invisible force. We try to use Star Wars as an example, showing that, okay, you've got in the movies a force. Luke drops his lightsaber, he reaches out for it, and it comes right back to him. A force is just a push or a pull. It's that simple. And when we're talking about forces, we can describe their strength, we can describe the direction, the field that they create. But as far as what the forces really are, we have a description mathematically of how strong it is, but not a great description of what it really is. When we're talking, for example, about electromagnetism, that's a really, really good one for the students to think about. So again, trying to really express as best we can. That in science, definitely, it is not all said and done. After we came in from our observation out in the schoolyard, let me switch out the screens here real quick. We had a lab here in class, and my intention in this lab, again, I don't want to keep it secret until tomorrow. You're welcome to check this out and see where we're going with this. My intention is to really clarify the difference between a dependent and an independent variable. Now this lab looks something like this. Let me get my glasses on here. The chair that I'm sitting on, you can't quite see on the screen, I don't think. But we took a meter stick, and the meter stick, 100 centimeters. Again, sneaking in our learning again, something that we hopefully know already here in 7th grade, but again, we're reviewing with this lab, 100 centimeters in a meter, and we're looking at taking just a golf ball, good enough golf balls for everyone here in the class, and a meter stick for each group, and we bounce it, we let it drop, and our intention is to see how high it bounces based upon where we dropped it from. In other words, if I hold this at exactly 100 centimeters, how high did it bounce up to? Now, in some classes, we had a little extra time. You were able to use your iPhone or whatever phone you had handy and check out the height to which the ball bounced. The students had the choice as to where they would drop the ball. In other words, they could have dropped it from 100 here at the top, from 90, from 80, and hopefully you can see where this is going based on what we've done in class already. The drop height, the height from which the students drop the ball, that's your x-axis, that's your independent variable. A way to think about this, or a way to remember it, might be you had the independence to choose. You had the choice on where to drop the ball from what height to drop the ball. That's your independent variable. Your dependent variable, the height to which the ball bounces, the dependent variable that we plot over here on the y-axis. This right here are data that we get from our experiment. depends on, and yes, I'm emphasizing that, our dependent variable depends on the independent variable. If there's a connection between the two, and of course we're looking for a connection here, we want to say that the independent variable, the one that we chose, had an effect, and we can make a prediction down the line. For example, if we never do drop the ball from 110 centimeters up here somewhere above the meter stick, based on the data on our graph, can we make a prediction as to how high it would bounce? This gets back to the other whiteboard that I'm pointing out over there, which I moved off to the side. About any good theory, we're trying to be able to make predictions. We showed a little bit of a clip from the, I don't know if you've seen those airplanes that make parabolic arcs, and people experience what seems to be no gravity, what they're really in is free fall, but that went along with the idea of gravity being a pulling force. This right here, pulling the golf ball down. A little while later, when we watched the movie, or at least a clip from the movie The Martian, I want to challenge the students to think about, okay, if we were to do this golf ball bounce experiment on the planet Mars, what would be the results? Maybe not the exact results, but would the ball bounce higher? Would the ball bounce lower? Would it bounce about the same? We want to think about those things. So that's what we did today in class. A little bit of observation skills outside, checking the shadows. A little bit of observation skills online, checking the high tides and low tides here in Pacifica, and also sunrise and sunsets here in Pacifica. And then finally, a lab where each row group went out to the counters. Tomorrow, I will challenge the students to think about, okay, what were the controls in this experiment? For example, we all use the same brand of golf ball, and we all use the same countertops here upon which to bounce the golf ball, but those are the control variables. What were some of the other control variables going on here? All right, that's what we did today on August 26th. See you next time, and have yourself a great Thursday. Bye-bye.